Okay, so have you ever found yourself lying awake at night wondering, what's the point of it all? What's the purpose of life?
You're definitely not alone in asking that question.
I think it's one of those big existential questions that's plagued humankind since we started thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
And luckily for us, there have been tons of philosophers and theologians and scientists who've tackled this very question.
Oh yeah, we have a lot to go through.
And we're going to take a deep dive into a fascinating podcast episode that explores all these different perspectives on the purpose of life.
I'm excited.
Me too. Get ready for some serious aha moments as we journey from ancient wisdom all the way to modern psychology.
What I find so fascinating is that despite all these centuries of debate, there's still no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah, that's true.
But exploring these diverse perspectives can really help you understand how other people have found meaning. And that can be a really helpful starting point in your own search for purpose.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to have this buffet of ideas about purpose laid out before us, and we get to taste test all of them.
I like that analogy.
Let's start where it all began, with the OG philosophers, the ancient Greeks.
Always a good place to start.
They were really onto something with this whole idea of purpose, especially this guy Aristotle.
Yeah, Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia is absolutely key here. It's often translated as flourishing, but it's not just about feeling happy. It's about really fulfilling your potential, living a life of virtue and knowledge, basically becoming the best version of yourself that you can be.
Okay, so it's like that acorn that has the potential to grow into a mighty oak tree.
Exactly.
But what if you're more of a shrub person? Does that mean you haven't fulfilled your purpose? This is where things get really interesting.
That's a great way to put it. And it highlights why the ancient Greek perspective is just one piece of the puzzle. Fast forward a couple of millennia to the 20th century, and we bump into this group of thinkers called the Existentialists, and they really shook things up in the purpose debate.
Existentialists. Huh. All right, fill me in. What do they have to say about all of this?
Imagine a world where you're born with no instruction manual, no preset plan. That's the basic premise of existentialism.
Okay, I think I can wrap my head around that so far.
Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre believed that existence precedes essence. So basically, we're born into this world without any inherent meaning or purpose. We create our own purpose through the choices we make and the actions we take.
Wow, that's both kind of terrifying and really liberating at the same time.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
No set path, just figuring it out as we go.
Exactly. Sartre even went so far as to say, man is condemned to be free.
Condemned to be free. That sounds a little contradictory.
Yeah, it does on the surface, but what he meant was that if there is no inherent meaning in life, then we have this huge responsibility to make choices that actually create meaning. The burden is entirely on us.
It's not just about choosing what to have for breakfast. It's about shaping the meaning of our entire existence.
Yeah, you're getting it. Heavy stuff, right?
Really heavy stuff.
And then you've got another existentialist, Albert Camus, who added this whole other layer of what he called absurdity.
Absurdity. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me about Camus's take on purpose.
Camus was convinced that life is fundamentally meaningless. But instead of getting all depressed about it, he thought we should actually embrace the struggle and find joy in it. He used the myth of Sisyphus, the guy who was condemned to push a boulder up a hill for all eternity, only to have it roll back down.
Yeah, I know that story.
He used that myth as this metaphor for the human condition.
So we're all just Sisyphus pushing our boulders facing this absurdity? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, but his point wasn't to make us wallow in meaninglessness. He wanted us to embrace the absurdity of it all, to find joy in the striving even to imagine Sisyphus happy, as he put it.
Okay, so that's a pretty powerful way to look at it. You're saying that purpose isn't necessarily about achieving some big goal. It's more about the act of living itself, the journey, even if it feels like an endless uphill battle.
You got it. Camus reminds us that even if there's no cosmic purpose waiting at the finish line, we can still create meaning and find fulfillment in everyday life in those moments where we're pushing our own metaphorical boulders.
So it's not about finding some purpose out there in the universe. It's about living with purpose, even if the universe doesn't hand us one on a silver platter.
Exactly. And this whole idea of finding meaning within a framework leads us to another major perspective on life's purpose: religion. For billions of people around the world, their faith is what provides that sense of why we're here and how we should live.
It's like having a compass that gives you direction, a set of values to live by, and that feeling of belonging within a larger community. Okay, so let's talk about some of the different ways that religious traditions approach the question of life's purpose? What are some of the key perspectives?
In Christianity, for example, the purpose of life is often seen as fulfilling God's will.
Okay, so living a moral life, loving others, striving to be worthy of spending eternity with God.
Exactly. And Islam has a similar emphasis on submitting to a higher power.
Oh, yeah.
In Islam, life is viewed as a test from Allah. So it's about worshiping Allah, following the teachings of the Quran, and trying to earn your place in paradise.
So both Christianity and Islam emphasize a purpose that comes from God
Yeah,
and following a specific path that's been laid out for us.
you got it. And then you have Hinduism, which takes a really interesting approach with the concept of dharma.
Dharma. It sounds a bit like fulfilling your potential, but with a spiritual twist.
You're picking up on the nuances. In Hinduism, everyone has their own specific dharma, a duty or path in life.
Okay.
And it's based on their role in society and what stage of life they're in. It's about fulfilling that dharma and through reincarnation, gradually moving towards enlightenment or moksha.
Moksha.
Yeah, it's basically liberation from that cycle of birth and death. It's like the ultimate goal in Hinduism.
So in Hinduism, purpose unfolds over multiple lifetimes. Wow. That adds a whole new dimension to this whole idea of life's purpose.
It really does. It becomes a much longer journey, a kind of spiritual evolution. And then you have Buddhism, which offers another really profound perspective.
Okay, I'm ready for the Buddhist take on all of this.
Mhm.
What do they say about why we're here?
In Buddhism, the purpose of life is to end suffering
To end suffering. Okay, how do you do that?
by achieving enlightenment.
And enlightenment is?
It's the state of profound understanding, compassion, and liberation from what Buddhists call the cycle of desire and attachment and aversion, which they believe is at the root of all suffering.
Okay.
So it's about breaking free from that cycle through practices like meditation and mindfulness. The ultimate goal is nirvana, a state of complete liberation from suffering and from the illusion of the self.
So it's interesting. While Christianity and Islam give you purpose through a relationship with God, Buddhism is more about that inward journey towards self-realization.
Exactly. And what's really important to remember is that for billions of people, religion provides a really clear and powerful answer to that question, why are we here? It makes even the smallest actions feel purposeful because they're part of a larger spiritual framework.
So there's a lot of comfort and meaning to be found in these belief systems that connect us to something bigger than ourselves. But what about people who don't subscribe to any particular religion? Where do they find purpose?
That's where we move into the realms of science and psychology, which offer a whole different set of lenses for examining this idea of purpose. From a scientific perspective, evolutionary biology takes a pretty practical view on the purpose of life. It's all about survival and reproduction.
So passing on those genes, keeping the species going, not exactly romantic, but essential.
It boils down to that biological drive to survive long enough to have offspring. And that's where Richard Dawkins comes in with his famous book, The Selfish Gene.
Ah, Dawkins.
Yeah.
The champion of scientific atheism. He had some strong opinions about the power of our genes, didn't he?
He did. He argued that we're basically survival machines, vehicles for our genes to perpetuate themselves. He even went so far as to call our genes selfish because they're driven to replicate and survive, even if it means sacrificing the individual organism.
So he's basically saying we're puppets controlled by our genes. Our purpose is pre-programmed in our DNA. Is that it?
It's a bit more nuanced than that, but that's the basic idea. A lot of our behaviors and desires, even our sense of purpose, can be traced back to our evolutionary history. They're all shaped by this relentless drive of our genes to make copies of themselves.
Wow. It really makes you think, doesn't it? All our big dreams and existential worries might just boil down to these tiny molecules fighting for survival.
It definitely puts things in perspective, but here's where it gets interesting. Even if we are hardwired for survival, like Dawkins argues, maybe we can choose to go beyond that basic programming.
I see what you mean. We humans, we have self-awareness. We can think critically and make choices that go beyond just instinct and biology.
Right. Exactly. We can use those evolved abilities to create a sense of meaning and purpose that really resonates with our values, our aspirations, and our understanding of the world.
So it's not about denying our biology, but recognizing that we have the power to choose a purpose that aligns with who we are on a deeper level.
You got it. And this brings us to the realm of psychology, which offers a fascinating perspective on the purpose of life, one that really emphasizes meaning and fulfillment.
All right, let's dive into the psychology of purpose then. Who are some of the big names in this field?
We can't talk about the psychology of meaning without mentioning Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. And his experiences in those concentration camps gave him some truly profound insights into the human need for meaning, even in the face of unbelievable suffering.
His book, Man's Search for Meaning, is a classic. He had a really incredible way of explaining how people can find purpose in even the darkest of times. So what were some of his key insights?
Frankl believed that having a sense of meaning is essential for survival. And I don't just mean physical survival, but also psychological survival. He famously said, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how."
That's a powerful quote. It really speaks to the resilience of the human spirit. Our ability to find a reason to keep going even when all hope seems lost.
I agree. And Frankl didn't believe that meaning was something you just stumbled upon. He said that we actively create meaning through our engagement with the world, through our relationships, our work, our values, and even our suffering.
So it's not about finding a prepackaged purpose out there somewhere. It's about creating meaning through our own unique experiences and choices.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is that modern research actually supports Frankl's ideas. Studies have shown that people who have a strong sense of purpose tend to have greater well-being, happiness, resilience, and even better physical health.
Wow, so having a purpose isn't just some philosophical luxury. It actually has tangible benefits for our well-being. That's amazing.
It is. And it's not limited to certain people or certain stages in life. It doesn't matter if you're a young person figuring out your career, a parent raising a family, or someone enjoying retirement. Cultivating a sense of purpose can truly enrich your life.
I'm really starting to see how much more powerful it is to focus on what gives our individual lives meaning instead of getting hung up on searching for some abstract universal purpose.
I think that's a great insight. And it leads us to another really important shift in how we think about purpose these days. It's this idea that we have the power to create our own meaning. Especially as traditional sources of purpose, things like religion might not resonate with everyone.
So you're saying it's more about taking ownership of our own purpose rather than relying on external sources to tell us what our purpose should be. This seems so relevant in today's world. We're constantly questioning and redefining traditional beliefs and values.
You're exactly right. The beauty of it is that our understanding of purpose doesn't have to be rigid and fixed. It can be fluid and evolve with us as we grow and change. It's not necessarily about reaching some predetermined destination, but more about enjoying the journey, that ongoing process of exploring, learning, growing, and contributing to the world around us.
This makes me think of Joseph Campbell's advice to follow your bliss. It's like he was saying, our passions can actually guide us toward our purpose.
Absolutely. Campbell believed that when we wholeheartedly pursue the things that truly excite us and energize us, we tap into a deeper wellspring of meaning and fulfillment. Maybe it's a creative passion or a commitment to social justice, or simply seeking knowledge and understanding.
So our purpose doesn't have to be about some grand ambition or saving the world. It can be about those simple everyday things that make us come alive and feel connected to something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. And one of the most empowering things about this perspective is that it puts you in the driver's seat. You're not passively waiting for someone or something to hand you a purpose. You have the power to create meaning in your own life.
I love that. This whole conversation has been incredible. We've explored so many different perspectives on the purpose of life, from ancient philosophy to modern science to religion to psychology. And it's so clear that there's no single answer to the question of why we're here.
And that's what makes this topic so endlessly fascinating. The search for purpose is really a journey of self-discovery. It's a lifelong exploration that's bound to have its share of twists and turns. But what matters most is finding what truly resonates with you, what gives your life meaning.
If we've learned that there's no one right answer to this question of purpose, then where do we go from here? What are we supposed to take away from all these different perspectives?
I think one of the most important takeaways is that purpose isn't this thing that's just out there in the world waiting to be found. It's something we cultivate within ourselves. It's about figuring out what truly resonates with you from all those different perspectives we've talked about.
Yeah.
What aligns your actions, your choices, and your values with what makes your life feel meaningful.
I love that. This whole deep dive has really been eye-opening. We started out feeling all this pressure, like we had to find the right answer about the purpose of life.
Yeah.
But now it feels like we've been given permission to just create our own.
And that's exactly the shift we were hoping for. Don't get bogged down by thinking there's this one perfect universal purpose out there waiting to be found.
Yeah.
Instead, just focus on the things that bring you joy, that make you feel connected to something bigger than yourself, and that inspire you to make a difference in the world in your own unique way.
It's really freeing to think about purpose that way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even about finding the answer at all.
Or maybe not.
Maybe it's more about living the question, you know? Embracing the journey with all its ups and downs and twists and turns and just learning and growing as we go.
I love that, living the question. And who knows? Maybe in the process of really living and showing up authentically, we'll stumble upon our purpose. What if purpose isn't a destination, but a byproduct of a life well lived?
Whoa. Purpose as a byproduct of a life well lived. That's a really powerful thought.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be thinking about that one for a while.
That's what we really hope for with these deep dives, is
Yeah.
that they give you some new ideas, spark your curiosity, and encourage you to keep exploring these big questions.
So to wrap things up, we want to leave you with this. What is it that makes your life meaningful? What are the things that make you feel truly alive and connected? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? The answers to those questions just might hold the key to your own unique and constantly evolving purpose.
So keep searching, keep asking yourself those questions, keep living with intention, and you might be surprised at what you discover along the way.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the purpose of life. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.